Hello everybody, it is the Tokuist here, back again with another episode of the Yappist. Today we're going to be talking about Peacemaker Season 2. And this was a season that I honestly really did enjoy, but it had a lot of problems that I want to get into. Listen, I love Peacemaker. I love it so much that one time I was in school and I was failing all my classes and I could barely walk. But then Peacemaker showed up and said, "You got this, man." And all of a sudden I ascended into the heavens. I became the almighty pendant. I became David. So with that being said, Peacemaker is just a great show. The first season blew me away. I watched over the summer in preparation for Season 2. And Season 2 was pretty good. But you have to understand there were a lot of expectations that came with the season that just weren't there. And I think that's the main problem. First off, let's get into what was good about the show. For one, the writing was done incredibly well for, the characters. The character writing was great. I mean, each character had their own problems, their insecurities, their weaknesses. They had their strengths too. But you got to explore every single, aspect of the characters in different ways. Ads was going through her breakup, Economos, his insecurities, Hardcore coping with the fact she doesn't have a job, Vigilante just trying to just be a good friend to Peacemaker but kind of failing at it, and overall just Peacemaker feeling like he's a worthless piece of crap, which is just, I really feel like what makes Peacemaker so good is the fact that none of these characters really have superpowers, and that all these characters can be related to in some way. Like, some people maybe see themselves in Economos, or in Hardcore, or in Ads, or in Adrian, or in Chris. You kind of see a glimpse of yourself in some way into all these characters from a different perspective. It doesn't have to be a direct one-to-one copy, but you see, you can see some personality and some, relation to these characters. The show starts off with Chris being hella depressed, which makes sense because, bro has gone through a lot. He tries to sign up for the Justice Gang, but gets brutally rejected, which just completely crushes him. And then, Hardcore's like, "Yeah, no, I don't think I can be with you." He just feels like he's worthless. Genuinely worthless. He feels so worthless. He feels like that one, Playmates Godzilla figure that's just sitting on the shelf for who knows how long and never sells. That's how he feels. He feels very sad. And eventually, he finds out that, oh my god, there's another dimension that's like my life, but better. Better in quotation marks. So he goes to this world and he finds out his dad's alive and seems to be a good guy. His brother's alive. Keith's alive. That's amazing. But then he runs into his doppelganger. Doppelganger tries to kill him, and Chris ends up accidentally killing his doppelganger, and now he is like, holy shit, I just killed myself, pretty much. It's pretty crazy. And eventually Chris tries to live this double life of both being the Chris that he killed and being the Chris back home. Now, during all of this, Argus is now ran by Rick Flag, the same Rick Flag from Creature Commandos and Superman. He's pissed. He wants to get revenge on Peacemaker because, Peacemaker killed his son Rick Flag Jr. in the Suicide Squad. So it's kind of like a revenge thing. Rick Flag sets out to track Peacemaker down, and he finds out that Peacemaker has an interdimensional portal, which he uses as an excuse to look for him, because he's like, oh, we don't need another rift to happen like Lex Luthor caused, so let's take care of that. So yeah, it's like a whole bunch of crazy stuff that goes on. Now eventually, as the season progresses, Chris decides, you know what, screw it, I'm gonna leave. I'm leaving all of you. I'm going to this other dimension. And, well, up until this point, we do get some cool cameos. We get Luthor pulling up. We get the dude with the mustache pulling up. I keep forgetting his name, but we get that dude. But anyways, eventually, he goes to the other dimension. His friends go try to get him, find him, whatever. And, guess what, guys? This world is Earth X, ran by Nazis. But his dad's not a Nazi, surprisingly. But Keith is a semi-Nazi. It's really freaking weird. And, when he realizes this, he's like, oh crap, this is not a good place. So eventually, Chris's dad gets pretty much killed by Vigilante, because Vigilante thinks he's a bad guy. And then Keith almost gets killed again in front of Chris, and Chris, screams. This is probably, the most peak acting I've ever seen from John Cena. Genuinely, he deserves a freaking Emmy or something for this, because that scream that he let out was insane. I'm like, this is John Cena. That's a fantastic performance. And the scene was just really emotional if you think about it, because it's bro saw his brother dying as a kid and now is about to witness it again and relive that trauma. The whole show is pretty much about trauma in its own way. And eventually, Rick Flag tracks him down, and then, there's this whole, the rest of the show pretty much just goes with the characters eventually it's kind of like they finally get their, knots tied. I guess. All their characters kind of conclude in some way until the very end when Peacemaker gets thrown into Salvation. See, the reason why Rick Flag wants the portal is because he wants a door that he can just throw all the metahumans into, so that, guess what? Surprise, surprise, they don't really exist. He kind of becomes Lex Luthor. He becomes a really effed up dude by the end of the show. They really, really, like, assassinated Bro's character. Like, they turned him from this guy that I really, liked in Creature Commandos to this guy that I'm like, oh, I don't really like you anymore. You kind of suck. And that really was a big kind of disappointing thing, but I guess that's what was supposed to happen. I guess he's, like, supposed to be becoming the one person he was trying to not be. I love Uncle Flurry, by the way. I just wanted to mention him because I feel like I'm going to forget to mention him later. Bro is, like, the funniest character. I laughed every time Bro is on screen. Like, genuinely such a cool character. The ending happens, and the ending ends with Chris being thrown into Salvation, and it's a really weird ending, because unless you're a comic guy, now I didn't know what Salvation was until I went on TikTok and saw that people were talking about it, and Gunn confirmed it. It's based on a comic run that pretty much the planet is owned or ruled by Darkseid. So this is setting up Darkseid, which makes sense because James Gunn did say that this chapter of the DCU is focused on, like, gods and, like, magic and stuff like that. So it makes sense. And we are getting a Mr. Miracle, like, 5-episode TV show soon. So this all makes sense, but at the same time, it was just a super lackluster ending. I honestly would have been fine if Peacemaker ended with Chris having a happily ever after story. But nope, it ended like that. And it's like, are you kidding me, dude? Like, now I have to just sit it out, wait, and see what happens. Now, this supposedly connects to Man Tomorrow, and I can see the bigger picture, but it's just, like, if you're a comic guy, you'll probably be excited for this. Now, I've read comics. I do read some of the comics, but, like, I didn't really know what was going on, so I feel like if you're a general audience member, even with like, no knowledge at all of comic books, you're gonna be really confused and probably left kind of disappointed, like, what was the big deal? And Bro kept, like, acting like something about Ted Cord or, like, Blue Beetle was gonna show up, and Blue Beetle never showed up. My theory is, though, that this is the place that Ted Cord is going to get introduced at. Like, maybe Ted Cord also got trapped here. He's going to save Peacemaker, and they're going to be, like, hiding out there until more heroes arrive. But, yeah, no, I mean, the ending was just kind of convoluted. Also, the runtimes of the episodes pissed me off, because they kept getting shorter and shorter until the last episode, and it just genuinely was super disappointing, because it's like, the last season, all the episodes were roughly about 40-something minutes. This episode, they went down to 31 minutes, I think, and it was just kind of brutal, because it's like, you're so excited for this show, and it just was pretty disappointing. Another issue I had with this show was just the fact that, like, Peacemaker only wears his costume in the very first episode. Like, that was genuinely the most disappointing thing to find out. And the only fit he actually wears really is the Earth X costume, which he barely even wears that to begin with. So it was just really disappointing. Like, I get the whole season was more about him versus himself, rather than him versus some big supervillain, but I think that he should have worn that costume more, honestly. I think that would have made a lot more sense. I think would have been a lot more fun. I think people would give it more of a higher rating on their ends. When it comes to the soundtrack, it was great. You know, I was banging my head every single time. I was torquing it. I was hitting it back. It was amazing. Guess what? You know why? Because James Gunn is the master when it comes to putting music in movies. So, no complaints there. Visually, like, visual effects, I mean, they were alright. They were cool. I mean, they weren't, like, anything crazy. Like, you could tell it was just TV budget VFX. I honestly thought the finale was going to be VFX heavy, because I'm like, there's barely any in this whole freaking show. And I was like, oh, they're totally going to just save it for the last episode. Nope. It was such a letdown. Also, like, perfect opportunity for G.I. Robot to be in the Nazi world, but nope. Perfect opportunity for Superman, like maybe Earth X Superman to show up. Nope. Perfect opportunity for Blue Beetle to show up. Nope. Perfect opportunity for so many things to happen, but it didn't happen. And I'm not complaining because there weren't enough cameos. I'm just complaining because I feel like James Gunn overhyped it so much on social media, and a lot of people were just left confused and didn't really see the big picture. But aside from that, I think Peacemaker was really good. I love the characters. I love the music. I think the writing was done really well. I think every episode got you excited for the next, even though the last one got you a bit confused. But I think it was still a relatively solid show. I'm really excited to see how this storyline is supposedly going to wrap into Lanterns and probably Supergirl and definitely Man of Tomorrow, but I'm really excited. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching this video. If you did, make sure to click that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.